A lot of women feel scared. I think a lot of people do not speak up. And I think a lot of women who do speak up are then labeled as noisy and as loud and as people that must be, quietened. And so you have to make sure, I think, that there are a couple of things that you come with in a board. And all the time, it's about your knowledge. It's always about understanding that business. It's always about reading that pack. I once sat on a board for no more than 3 months. And I'm not going to say the company because it's a very well-known business. I think it was a board of 6 people, exceptionally profitable business. And it was run by the founder.
Okay.
One of the rules was you never miss a board meeting. And that day I had a particular
reason to
miss it, and it was a family
meeting.
reason.
Yeah.
And I'm a family person, and maybe I just didn't really understand that rule. And so he called me into his office and said to me, "You missed this meeting." And I said, "Yeah, I did. Absolutely. Yeah, this was the issue." He said,
Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Off the Clock.
How do you deal with stress? How do you handle that?
Coping mechanism that I have is I go for a run.
Manage stress by obviously having moments like this. Directly saying I'm going off the clock.
Just even a night out.
I'm listening to my favorite music. I go into one of the studios at the gym and I dance.
Some cocktails and rest and just do nothing.
Yeah,
I ground myself spiritually.
The right amount of stress is good.
Great. Welcome back to Off the Clock. Today we have a special guest, Ipele Mukari, one of the power women in business that I happen to know recently. And really, I was quite impressed by, what you've achieved, what you've done, coming from the bottom to the top. So Off the Clock is not about us. It's about you. And today, we really just want to know you. And for that, I just want you to introduce yourself the way you know best. And we'll get into some questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ndade Peter. It's a wonderful pleasure to be here. Introduce myself. So I'm Ipiling Nkari. I'm a girl from KZN, born and raised.
Okay, that's unusual.
Yeah, it is unusual. My name doesn't necessarily suggest that I'm from KZN, usually, but I am from there. Came to Johannesburg about maybe 30 odd years ago.
Where about in KZN? KZN is big.
Quite HMLAS.
Okay.
Literally
Mlazi.
MLAS, yes.
Oh, okay.
Literally quite HMLAS. Born and raised there. I have parents who found themselves in KZN because of the struggle. My father I'm a Miss Muloto.
Okay, you are
so
maiden.
Muloto.
Yeah.
And Kimokoni.
Okay.
My dad is from Rustenburg and is part of, I suppose, the big Muloto clan that comes from Muleji. But he's from Moruleng. And my mom is from a little place called Katkop. Xhosa mom, Miss Mashalaba. And they somehow met in politics in Natal. That's the story. And that's how I land up, born and raised their first child. And I'm the eldest of two other sisters. So we're 3 girls at home.
Okay, so you see some.
Very much so. And I'm just this person who came to Joburg many years ago, finished my junior degree, bachelor's degree in Natal, after obviously schooling there my whole life, and came to Gauteng very young, very, very green, in my early 20s when I just finished my degree and came to stay with my father.
What was your degree in?
Social sciences, interestingly.
Okay.
So I studied a Bachelor of Social Science, and I nearly said matriculated. I'm confusing matric and varsity. I did industrial psych and psychology as my majors.
Yeah.
And I think at the time I thought I was going to be a psychologist. My mom was someone in the medical profession, and I think
it made sense.
I think she kind of always thought, "Oh, Billy, you might become a psychologist one day. You like to listen to people. You give good advice." That was then. I mean, I was a child, really.
Okay.
But I didn't follow that. But I find that I have applied my psychology and my industrial psychology and sociology knowledge very, very nicely in the business environment. And I've used that in a big way. So I've not studied anything commercial. I became an entrepreneur at a very young age.
Yeah, and I would like to know more about that. Just reading your profile, you really larger than life, just in terms of what you've been able to do and the journey that you've traveled. Is this something that you always wanted to do, or it just happened?
No. I'm a shy person. Let me start there.
Okay.
I'm not the girl who was larger than life. So I'm very humbled by even hearing that. Dr. Peter, I grew up quiet, in a corner, always having to be called to come and greet the other kids or the other parents, and if people were visiting. That was the girl that I was.
Okay.
Very reserved.
What changed?
I think, in life as I grew up, when my parents divorced, something came up in me. I moved into a boarding school environment. Okay. I was about 12 years old, so I'm the eldest of 3 girls.
Okay.
And when I realized that my dad had left and he was, kind of going to Joburg to seek a better life for himself and do his own thing, it was painful. But, something clicked in my mind when I was at boarding school. Was, hey, these 2 people, they've decided they're doing this. You know what? Let me live my life as well. Something came alive in me. And I remember getting to this boarding school in what is today grade 9. So it was standard 7.
Okay.
And I just wanted to do things like public speaking. I signed up for Gavel Club. I signed up for debating. I'm sporty, so I was in netball and basketball and all of those things. And I thrived. I suddenly became this person that people wanted to listen to, talk to, and I enjoyed the person I was becoming. And I really, really grew in confidence. I became far more secure with myself. And by the time I reached matric, I was just this person who was deeply moved by leadership, enjoyed it, thrived in it, and found myself as the leader of the school. I was the head girl of that school. And it was in the early days, 1991, before democracy. So it was tough. It wasn't easy. And I think, when I look at my journey, when you say, how did I become a business person? It was not a plan at all. I became a business person out of an opportunity that faced me.
Okay.
And as I reflect on the leadership and the girl who became stronger, the reason I describe that little adversity moment is because I found myself in an adverse moment.
So was that the turning point for you?
Definitely. The first adverse moment was my parents divorcing. The second was losing my mom. So when she died the year I finished varsity.
So, off the clock, it's about you, it's about family. And I'm sure you're okay that we can deep dive on that kind of a big moment when your parents separated. We can get to your mom later. How was it like? I'm asking this because my son, who's not here today, I remember there was a moment when I had a really difficult argument with his mom, and he was there, and he was really, really worried, and he had a side chat with me to say, look, you need to go easy, otherwise you guys are gonna go different ways, and I'm gonna be the victim here. So for my sake, he was kind of using a bit of reverse psychology, and just let us in terms of how that separation touched you both ways. Negatively and positively, because some of these moments kind of push you forward.
They do.
Make you grow.
They do. Adversity is a propeller, without a doubt. And that's my journey. So when, I think, Peter, I'm reflecting on what you've just said, your son. When 2 parents separate, because I've gone through it, I've seen it, and being the eldest, you don't know why they separate. You have no idea, because no one sits you down and says, this is why I now don't want to be with this person.
Yeah, because they don't
Suddenly
report
life
to you.
changes.
Yeah.
So life started changing, and it was palpable. You could see it because, we stayed with our mom in Natal.
Yeah.
She then continued to be our main or single
Provider.
kind of provider.
Yeah.
And my dad went back to Joburg, where he had been born and raised, from Moruleng. He had gone, his mom lived in Soweto. So suddenly you saw this woman who was once very strong suddenly become, more sad and not as happy. And obviously now she starts saying, I think there's going to be a change in our lives. I think how that affected me was just to stand up. I realized that, oh my word, we're a family, yes, and I love my parents dearly. They're the only thing we know. But it just, something clicked in me that said, Billy, life is, I suppose, about you also standing up and taking up your own ideas and thoughts and being a bit more bold. So two things happened when my parents in Standard 6, because I was 12, around about 12, when I realized that they were separating, and my dad, was no longer living in Natal. I was at this boarding school, a wonderful boarding school called Utongati, which was beginning to challenge the traditional apartheid style schools. So we were very lucky as little girls. We went to very good private schools. When I went to Utongati, it was a very different mixed school. You could wear any clothes. There were no uniforms. And I think it threw me off. And so at the end of that year, I said to my mum,
your sense of fashion wasn't well developed
it threw
that
me
time.
off. First of all, I was a girl who had been at school in an all-girls convent school from grade 1. And I was now in this co-ed school. We weren't wearing uniform. There were no nuns. There were no strict rules.
Meeting the boys.
It was too much. And I realized, hang on, I need structure. I'm a structure person. And so I said to my mom and dad that end of that year, I want to go to a new school. Can I move? And I moved. And I think, Peter, what change and adverse situations do is they allow you to dig deep into yourself. At that age, I dug deep into me. Who am I? What do I want? I didn't ask those questions, but those were the things going on in my mind. And I knew I wanted to move. And so I made a call and I said to my mom, I need to move. And I need to go to an all-girls school with structure, with teachers, and with uniform. Those are my requirements. She moved me. And we went to a beautiful school called St. John's DSG in Maritzburg.
Wow.
Okay.
Beautiful school.
And it really is a beautiful school. And when I got to that school, suddenly Ipileng came alive. As I said, I suddenly was this girl who said, okay, I'm now here on my own. I'm no longer at home. I'm no longer at the other school, Utongati, which I loved as well. This is me. This is Billy. Who am I? And I recall just the ability of making friends, just to start to make friends.
So your social skills were getting better and
They
better.
were getting better because now I didn't start in grade 8 with everybody when they started in the school. I started in the next year in standard 9 or grade 9. So I started at 7, my apologies. And I had to get to know the girls. I had to understand who they were. They had to understand me. It was probably one of the best years of my schooling career, without a doubt.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, tell me a little bit about the synopsis of Motseng as a business journey, how it all started and to this, big organization that you have today. I'm sure you had some trials and tribulations, happy and sad moments.
Too many. So I have been very blessed. We have been very blessed, Motseng. I think my journey and our journey as a company, started off once again, I say, with a lot of struggle, a lot of adversity. But I think as a founder and a co-founder of the business, I realized that it's what I thrived on. I needed that to actually push me. And in 1998, so a year after, so 96, I finished my degree. 97, I come up to Johannesburg, January. We bury my mom, 96.
So sorry
12th
about
of
that.
December, 14th of December. And life is just different. And we come up to Johannesburg in January of that year to live with our father because he's the next of kin now. He's the next person to be with. And it was already in my plan to come to Joburg because I'd finished varsity. So my view was I was going to come to Johannesburg because I thought Durban was just too small for what I wanted to try and achieve.
How was that transition? Living with, reconnecting with your dad after the
Tough.
separation.
Very tough.
Okay.
Yeah, very tough, Peter. You know, when you've lived with your mom after this change from 12 to now, what, I'm 21. But we've been coming up to Johannesburg to visit, right? So we've been coming up twice, 3 times a year, holiday time. But the difference is when you come up for a holiday, you go back to the other parent. Now you're coming up for good. There's no other parent to go to. So that was different. And I think we were challenged because, you know, our mom passed away alone. And I think there was just the sadness of a woman who passed away. By the way, she was my age. I'm 50.
Okay.
My mom passed away at my
50.
age right now. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's
She
young.
was a child. She was
That's
young.
right, that's
she wasn't
young,
a child,
very
sorry,
young.
but she was young. But she had achieved so much.
Yeah.
And so when I look at my kind of my understanding of what we had thought she would live to 80 or whatever, you know, when you move now to your other parent whom you love so much, but there's a sense of so much deep pain. And you're
Loss.
starting afresh and loss. And you're starting afresh to understand one another because now I haven't lived with you every day, so you don't know the things I like, or maybe I might leave the cup in the sink and you're like, I don't like it left like that. This is, you know, these are the rules of the house. So it was a transition.
Yeah.
And although it was probably the best thing that we needed that. And I remember saying to my dad, you know, we're going to get to know one another again. And it took probably a year just to get out of that pain, but also to see one another again. And I say it was a great opportunity because I think for parents who separate, and, you know, especially when you're not living in the same city,
Yeah.
I think that one does lose. And I'm sure my dad felt that gap. But the gain later was he then got to be with us from 21 onwards. And remember, I'm the eldest of 2 others, so they were much younger. So he actually got to play a massive role in their lives.
And you the head girl.
I'm daddy's girl.
Yeah.
That's the other thing, yeah.
Ever since I met you, I've seen your face brighten up every time you talk about your connection with him. So it looks like it was it was deep. Although, I mean, it happened in a more painful way, but, you know, maybe the fact that you got to really connect with him, you know, alone without maybe your mom kind of allowed you to connect in a special way.
Absolutely. It's such a gift. Thank you for saying that, Peter, because I certainly don't want to come across as though that journey was bad. It's been amazing. It's been amazing because, as you say, I got a chance, let me talk about myself. I got a chance to really connect with my mom as a child all the way up until 21. And that's a long time, you know. And I then got a chance to connect with dad. And at the same time, I'm probably the one of the 3 who's had the chance with them together the longest. So, you know, when I think of the time I've had with my father, he's 81 now. It's like, wow.
What a runway.
Absolute
long.
runway.
Yeah.
Very long runway. And he's absolutely sharp. You know, we're blessed with his health. And what I've had is the opportunity since I was 21, 22 to live with this guy, to start my business in his house. He's seen me go through things that he thought, hey, Ipiling, I don't know what you're doing. He assisted me to even start Motseng.
Wow.
And I'll share the story. So you asked me about how it started. I went and worked for a company in that one year, 1997. I worked for a CCTV business, closed circuit television.
Okay.
I was selling, you know, CCTV systems in this Midrand area.
Okay, right here.
Right here. My first job was in one of these warehouses around this area, opposite, very close to where Gallagher is.
Yes, I know that.
And I used to drive
up the
there.
road, yeah.
I used to go there, park, and I worked for a company that sold CCTV systems. And I got to that company through a friend from St. John's, a high school friend. They were looking for a BE person. They
Okay.
wanted to start up their own little BE joint venture.
Okay.
They had their own family business that was running well, and they wanted to start their own little BE business.
Right place at the right time.
It really was right place at the right time. And I stayed there for a year. And in that year, Peter, you'll notice I talk about adverse moments as critical moments of movement. In that year, you're now 23 odd or 22 odd. I realized 6 months in, I'm selling the system, so I'm a marketing person.
Yeah.
I realized one day we're asked to go to meet the gaming board of Mpumalanga because we want to implement CCTV solutions in these big casinos.
Yeah.
And we go for the interview at our offices, at our head office in Durban. So I get to travel to Durban, and I come from Joburg now to go to the head office. And when I come out of my interview, in the reception area that I'm in, I see my 2 co-directors. And it is the gardener of their home and the lady who cleans with a baby on her back.
Frantic at best.
I was just completely thrown off. So I greet them, sanibonani nifunani la. No, size kule meeting or whatever. I'm like, which one? No, we are here for
Only
the
one.
same thing that you're here for. So I put 2 and 2 together that actually I've not asked the question in 6 months. Who are my co-directors? I've not asked that question. I'm just going out there selling. And I quickly connect. Wow, Bills, you've been fronting. And you are fronting with these poor individuals who don't know. So they go into their interview. That day, I started writing my business plan. And I wrote it at home. I wrote it. And in November of that year, 97, I said to my dad, I need you to be my lawyer. I'm going to see the chairman and I'm resigning. And I resigned in that meeting. And we were now back here at the office. And I'd asked to see this gentleman, big man, tall man. And I was very scared of him. And there came my dad. He said, why must I be there? I said, I just need you in that meeting.
Was it just a role play lawyer or lawyer?
He is a lawyer. He's a judge.
Okay, all right, that's
so
better.
So at the time, I just said, Pops, you may not need to say anything, but I need you there. And he said nothing the whole meeting.
Just observed.
Just observed. And I just said, I need to get out. I would like to resign. I thanked the man for the job for a year. And I said, but there's one condition that I'd like you to register this company that I've been selling in my name. And I don't want anything else. The systems we've we'd won a massive contract at AXA. I said, it's not a problem. I don't want that. I just want the name Posa Iso, CCTV.
Okay. Yeah.
And he said, what are you going to do? I said, I want to start my own business. You'll never succeed. I said, I probably won't, you're right. But I'm going to try. And I'd seen a gap. What I'd seen, Dr. Peter, was in my travels and going to different business people and talking and asking for their business, I'd realized that when I went for bids and now I had to understand what's a tender and we'd go for site briefings, that there were not many Black women at all in those spaces.
It was still a men's world.
Highly so. And I just thought I'm going to just take that gap. And it was a technology solution. And I thought I could, potentially provide something. And that's how Motseng started. It started with Posa Iliso.
What about the name Motseng? Any connection to anything? Does it mean anything?
It does. It means village. It means a village. So when I started Motseng, I started with 3-4 colleagues, Jabu Mkhiga, Sandile Nomvete, and I. They approached me and said, Bills, we see you're doing this CCTV stuff. Sandile had actually grown up in Natal in the same township as I. And when I was a girl at St. John's, he was studying at St. Charles, literally schools right next to one another in Maritzburg. And so he said to me, why don't we look at investments? And I said, that's interesting. And indeed, Dr. Peter, if you recall those late 90s, we were reading up about Jonic.
Yeah, I remember that.
We were reading up about Nail, Dr. Mutlana,
yes,
Dr. Ramaphosa.
Yeah.
People were doing deals all around us. And we were reading up about these things as young business people. I remember reading the Black Enterprise magazine and thinking, wow, South Africa is shifting. And I said to Sandile, actually, I'll think about it. And we had a meeting and then we said, let's start this business. And we called it Motseng. And that was in 1998, September. We started that business from my dad's little
that's 28
lounge.
Years ago.
Correct, sir.
Wow.
Correct. It's been a journey, an amazing journey, very hard, very tough. And I talk about the toughness because, in the early days, my dad used to watch me drive and go from meeting to meeting. And the one day he said to me, "Your tires are smooth." And I said, "I know."
Smooth mean the finish, right?
Finished, completely gone. And I used to drive this little green Golf from varsity. I was blessed to have that little car. And I said to him, "Look, it's fine." He said, "Let me buy you tires." I said, "No, I'm already living in your house. I'm already."
You said no to him?
I said, "No." I said, "Pops, I will do it when I have the money." He says, "But you don't have the money."
He broke.
And we used to go to meetings with Sandile with these cars that had literally smooth tires. And I remember even one colleague we were going to talk to, I think the owners of ADT. I mean, that was a massive organization.
Yeah.
And people walk you out to go and say goodbye, and they're looking at, who are we talking to? Who are these people? They don't even have cars that have proper tires. They are kids. I mean, we were young, but we were hungry. And we wanted to be part of this story that was South Africa. It's 4 years post-democracy. You're reading up about people. And so the first name of Motseng was actually Motseng Youth Investments.
Okay, we started young.
And we kept going to see people, and they would kind of not listen to us. And then in a year later, we dropped the youth. We became Motseng Investment Holdings. We realized now it's not getting the traction that we wanted. But we were sub 25 in terms of age, very driven, very hungry. I had started this little CCTV business, and I put it in as, I suppose, the foundation of Motseng. And that's how we started.
So how big are you today in terms of size,
Sure.
market share, footprint in terms of the countries that you're playing in?
Yeah.
You mentioned that you kind of Southern Africa or SADC type business. Let us in.
Okay. So we're a business today in Dade Peter that is just sub 500 million revenue
Okay.
per annum. And we've backtracked a lot. I mean, 10 years ago, almost 15 years ago, we were there and we lost a lot of business.
Okay.
I'm of the view that we should be at least double or triple that size. It's life, and it's okay.
Yeah, things happen.
Things happen. We're a business that actively operates in 3 countries, Lesotho, South Africa, and Mozambique. But we also have a Mauritian entity through which we invest, outside of the SADC countries.
Okay.
We have a shelf entity in Botswana and Namibia, and I'd love to kind of get those moving one of these days because I think there's a lot of opportunity in those countries for a business like ours. We're a company that is what I would call a diversified investment holdings business today. We have started in this little CCTV and then we grew into property management services. But today we're an infrastructure business. So, we've bootstrapped from nothing. We've built many businesses. So we've built businesses that have been in security. One of our first ever deals was buying into a security guarding business because it was a natural move. It was an adjacency to CCTV.
Yeah, it's close to
very close
the business,
to that,
yeah.
Correct. And so we moved into those large scale type service businesses and then sold them 2 years later because we realized that we wanted to do bigger things and we started moving into property. So we were a service provider into property, CCTV and security and cleaning services into the property sector.
Yeah.
And then we were approached by a property business called Marriott Property
Okay.
that was collecting rentals and managing large
Properties.
shopping centers.
Yeah.
Now, I'm a Durban girl, so I grew up in Mlazi, as I mentioned.
Yeah.
And one of the largest shopping centers there was the Pavilion.
Yeah.
And I used to shop there.
Remember that? Beautiful. It used to
Yeah, beautiful. And when Marriott approached us, we said to them, why would you talk to us? And they said, no, you seem to be a young team that wants to learn. We'd like to expose you into the property industry. We have a client called Pareto, who is owned by the Eskom Pension Fund, who is insisting that we must have black.
be. Okay.
So Sandile and I looked at one another and we thought, okay, let's understand this property management. And they took us to the Pavilion, but they didn't take us to the shops. They took us to the center management office in the corner. So, when you're shopping, and I used to say this to young people, when you're shopping in the shop, you don't realize that there are people running the shops and running the whole center somewhere in a corner.
Yeah, it's like the cockpit of the shopping center.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so we just started to be kind of exposed to things we never knew. And here were these two young business people from Durban, young entrepreneurs, I should say, from Durban, and we were being exposed to the center management office of the pavilion. And there were like 30 people sitting in those offices collecting rental, concluding leases. And we started to learn what it was to run a shopping center. So what we've done, I think, as a business over the years in Motseng, when I look at where we are today, is we've understood a couple of things that we're constantly learning, and that you're never going to go into a space always as the guru, but you certainly can pick up as you go along the way. And in every sector that we've gone into, particularly property and all the allied, we have been sponges. We've literally just said, teach us, we'll learn, let's go and study these, the subjects.
So you've evolved and grown into the whole ecosystem.
We've tried. We've definitely tried.
So, I mean, today, if there's one investment that you've made in Motseng that looks small today, but you think is going to be this big, what will that be?
Wow, sure.
Because we always look forward, right?
Sure. Looks small today. So, we've invested in different things, and I think we've got a strategy today called Chasing 2028. And it's a strategy to expand in the current verticals that we're in. And I think the one vertical that we're not in, that is tiny today, is energy. We're not in renewable energy. And yet we're a business that has moved from property to public-private partnerships to engineering to telcos. We should be in energy. We are through our engineering business. We advise a lot of, large IPPs. We advise a lot of developers. But that's a space that I'd really like to get into, and not just the standard energy we think of, which is, renewable energy in solar or wind. It's water. Which is a renewable resource, essentially.
Yeah, and we know we're going to have a water scarcity down the line. It's coming.
Absolutely. It's coming. It's coming, Dr. Peter. So it's for us, it's about how do we understand this energy space? How do we understand gas? How do we understand solar and wind and all these resources that are around us? So that's definitely something that's like zero at this point in my mind, and certainly must grow. And maybe one other that is maybe not as apparent is we impact maybe about 470 people. We employ about 470 people in these couple of geographies that we operate in.
Wow, that's a big team. It's a big army.
It's big for us, yes.
Yeah. For any company, I mean, to employ just around 500 people, providing a lot of quality jobs, making big impact out there. So it's not a small feat. So,
thank you. Thank you, Dad. Thank you. And when I think about your question around what's small today, I suppose for us, it's the greatest asset we have is our people. And so when I think about what we want to do as Motseng, there was a time in my life, maybe in my 30s and 40s, where I thought size is everything. You've got to be like 1,000 people, or you've got to be like 2,000. You've got to be hitting those big revenue numbers. And that shifted. For us, impact sits in different places. So the quality of our earnings is far more important for me than the revenue, but the quality of our people.
And the bottom line as well.
Correct. And the quality of our people and what impact they have or we have in the spaces that we're in. So sometimes I feel like we haven't done enough. We are still growing. There is so much more to do. There's so much more to achieve, and sometimes that feels small.
So I mean, let's keep moving a little bit. The one thing that I really advocate a lot, even in my book, Chapter 6 of Winning in Africa, Your Next 8 Moves, is women empowerment and advancement, and the whole story around diversity and inclusion. On the fireside chat, Women on Boards, where I met you, I mean, I heard you talk about how maybe disempowering it can be if you're a woman in a board that is derailing and going in different directions and not standing up. These days I kind of, as an author, I analyze a lot of things, and I look deep into things because of relationships like this. We get to know every business a little bit more than a layman. I was looking at a story on Truett, the company that is having a board that is dysfunctional, but the company is quite big. It's about Johannesburg Stock listed company, 21 billion rand turnover, but they punch it very low when it comes to certain things, but yet the shareholders and investors are big companies like PIC, but they're not able to effect that. The CEO has been there for 35 years. Can you believe it? The chairman has been there for 21 years. Can you believe it? Where is the succession story? We're going to rule until Jesus come back, type of a setup. And then you look at that board and say, what are they doing? I mean, where is, and the list goes on and on. As a woman sitting on board, often I feel pity for you guys in terms of, how much influence, effect that you can have for this companies, these boards, to see the light, because you can choose to take the check and keep quiet, or blow the whistle and get kicked out.
Anyway, exactly. I once sat on a board, you're reminding me, Tate Peter, for no more than 3 months. And I'm not going to say the company because it's a very well-known business. I think it was a board of 6 people, exceptionally profitable business. And it was run by the founder.
Okay.
And he had rules, and I respected his rules. But I want to share that, the one day, one of the rules was you never miss a board meeting. And that day I had a particular
reason to miss
it, and it was a family
meeting.
reason. And I'm a family person, and maybe I just didn't really understand that rule. And so he called me into his office and said to me, "You missed this meeting." And I said, "Yeah, I did. Absolutely.
You.
Yeah, this was the issue." And he said, "That's the end of our relationship. Thank you." And I said, "Oh, absolutely. No problem." I think, at the core of sitting on boards is understanding who you are and understanding the team that you're in and understanding the relationship that you have, particularly the shareholder or the chairperson. Sorry, shouldn't even say the shareholder, the chairperson.
Yeah.
There is just no way that I would have survived in that board, because just that event on its own told me that it is one way or the highway. And that probably described the entire company. Highly successful company.
Probably paying more.
Absolutely. And I could have begged. I could have said, "Look, I'm so sorry. It won't happen again." I could have done many. I simply stood by my guns. And my guns were, I will have another family situation. Any other day, I might have to do something, pick up a child. Someone might get sick. Am I going to now not be able to sit on a board and be effective because of that? No. And so I think our voices as women in boards are extremely critical. But I agree with you, Ndate Peter. I think a lot of women feel scared. I think a lot of people do not speak up. And I think a lot of women who do speak up are then labeled as noisy and as loud and as people that must be, quietened. And so you have to make sure, I think, that there are a couple of things that you come with in a board. And all the time, it's about your knowledge. It's always about understanding that business. It's always about reading that pack.
Is it really always about the knowledge? Because, please allow me to indulge, because my experience of certain bodies is not always about the knowledge. It's about the network. It's about the all boys club. And I mean, earlier you mentioned that you got connected to a business because, the person went to St. John's and you know each other from school.
True.
It helps, but it doesn't help.
Yeah.
To have you come here because you're my friend, not because of what you
What
can
you know.
bring, what you know, the value that you can add.
You're spot on. So I think that two things would be problematic. You come into a board and you sit there and you're not knowledgeable. So for me, I still rate information, getting deep into it as critically important. But you're right. People don't put people on boards that they don't know, that they don't trust. And they're not going to put a person in a board that's going to necessarily challenge them. And I think that becomes a real factor in not just boards, in business. We do business with people we like. And it becomes even more critical at a board level. So it is a boys' club. And I don't see why you can't have a girls' club. And I don't see why you can't have a club where there's conversations.
I'm waiting to be invited to a girls' club. There are not too many of those.
No, they're not. They're not enough of those. And I'm advocating, as I said that day at the Women on Boards function, often as women, when we meet, we get together and then we chat about, how's the home, how the kids, if you're a mom, or how the family, broadly speaking. And we don't usually say, by the way, I'm working on a transaction, or I want to get into that board. I know you are working with that company. I'd love to chat to you. We very rarely even start with that. We very rarely even start with that. We don't lead with it. And if it comes into the conversation, it's like, oh, yeah, no, of course, no, we'll talk, girl. And that's where we define our relationship. It ends in this very kumbaya state. And so I think that women don't see themselves as competitive, and yet they are so competitive.
You're so right. I mean, as somebody who's been advocating for women and also CEO of a big company, where at any given time you see a woman candidate and a man candidate, or a guy, the way they kind of present themselves, a guy will probably have a qualification that probably way about 30% and say, oh, I'll ace this, I'll do it. A lady who's got 50% and say, I'm not ready, I can't do that. And I've seen that again and again and again and again. And I also, maybe it's a good thing that my daughter and my son, they're not here. I see that often in them when my daughter will often say, look, I'm 60%, I'm not there. When my son is 60%, he's 100% in his head. He's going to do it. And it's just the way I think, people need to understand the approach of, female and males in approaching these things and deal with it the right way.
Dr. Peter, we're not raised as girls to be hunters. We're not. So a guy, and I take nothing away from a guy. Exactly. I take nothing away from your son who says, I'm there, or a guy who says, I can do it because he believes he can. It's a mindset thing. What you say to yourself in your mind and what you actually become, these things are connected. Yeah. And so as girls, we're raised to be submissive. We're raised to, follow, not necessarily lead.
Not challenge.
Don't challenge. And I have no problem with us understanding both sides of the coin. But I think what I've realized in business over the years, that little shy girl, I've realized I'm actually very competitive. I want to win.
I can change.
I enjoy winning. I acknowledge that I will lose. So I think it's a very interesting socialization that we're in. And when we see women in the boardroom taking control, or when we see women taking ownership in often in spaces, I've found myself having to coach my own colleagues over the years, over the last 28 years, the women who've been strong, and say to them, continue with that. Do not fear, because often they get pushback and they'll get labeled. So there is a balance that we need to manage. But I think what we have to realize is that in the boardroom, and back to that boardroom, we as women need to step up. We also need to recognize that it's not the conversations in the boardroom that matter as much. It's the conversations outside that matter just as much, because it's those connections that actually influence as well what happens in that board.
I agree. I fully agree. I need to get back to you.
Yes, okay.
With your a busy schedule, running a bigger company with many challenges. We often talk about balance here. The podcast was founded to spotlight people like you, but more work-life balance, especially sleep, stress, all those things that people often take them for granted. On a kind of average day, how many hours of sleep do you do?
Try to get in about 6 hours, and I think I'm doing well. I think I'm doing pretty well. There was a time in my life where I had strict kind of rules where I'd sleep at 10:30.
Okay.
I'd be up at 4:30 at the gym,
Okay.
just before it opens at 5. And I'm a morning person.
Okay.
And my day would be phenomenal. I'm also a Virgo, so I'm very structured in my mind.
Okay.
And so sleep for me and all those things are really important. But Ndate, I'll be honest with you and say that like now, the last year, I've been completely off. I'm so unfit. I'm not walking or going to the gym or swimming, but I've still got the same stress. In fact, I think more stress, and it's just about, I suppose, the work-life balance sometimes gets out of balance. That's the truth.
Do you eat well?
Very well. I eat well.
What does that mean, eating well? I mean,
I eat 3 meals a day. I
you know,
don't skip my meals.
Norwegian salmon for dinner with rosé wine and caviar and sit in a jacuzzi and go to bed. I mean,
definitely not. No.
No jacuzzi.
No. The thing about me is I don't eat meat, so I don't eat chicken or meat.
Okay.
So I'm pescatarian, and I have been for now. It's my 9th year. But I recognize that I need energy, to think. I think the one challenge with business and careers is that I find my brain doesn't switch off. When I'm really tired, I don't even think when I'm sleeping, But often
switch off.
When I'm asleep, I switch off. Often when I'm asleep, I'm thinking about that board pack, or I'm thinking about that next opportunity, or I sometimes even wake up in the middle of the night and quickly write the note that I'm thinking of on the notepad, really, and go back to sleep.
Yeah.
Yes, because I might forget it. It's a problem. So work-life balance, in my view, doesn't exist. You've really got to work at it all the time. It's very hard.
Yeah, a lot of people confirm that. So married with how many kids?
Married but separated.
Okay. How many kids?
3 kids.
Boys, mix?
3 girls.
Wow.
Can you
That's a
believe
carbon copy of your parents.
It is. And what's so crazy, my dad has got no brothers, no sisters, sorry, only boys. And my mom was the 7th of 7 girls.
Wow.
And I got 3 girls with
Did you wish you had a boy?
I think Given would have liked to have a boy. He wanted initially to have 4 kids, and I said, no ways. Thankfully, we do have 4 because he has an older daughter, so we have 4 girls. Gorgeous girls, amazing girls. But I think I'm a girl mom. God made me that person. It's just, yeah.
How did you meet your husband? Was it arranged?
He was interviewing me like this.
Oh, okay. Just
strangely, he interviewed me on Kaya FM.
You're very high level. I mean, do you want to unpack that for us?
No, of course I will.
Yeah.
So it's a very funny story. The late Tabiso Sekwane,
Yes.
DJ Fresh's wife, was Given's producer.
Okay.
And so, that day, you may not remember this restaurant. I mean, I remember clearly. I'm young. I'm like sub 30, sitting in an amazing restaurant, feeling like I'm this really strong business person, and I get a call.
What restaurant is that?
It was in Village Walk. Village Walk was the place.
I remember Village Walk.
Yeah, it was the place for young people then. And I'm sitting with my business partner, and I get a call from this lady, and I don't know her. And she says, we'd really like to interview you tomorrow. So I think, or it was the 2 days later, I think. And I say to my business partner, radio. He's like, go for it. I'm like, okay, first radio interview. So I say, no problem. So she says, you'll come to Kaya. I go, and Kaya was a very well-known station.
Yeah.
Get there, and I walk into the radio station, and they take me to the room, and I see Lucky Dube. Not Lucky Dube, Lawrence Dube. My
Lawrence
apologies,
Dube, yeah.
yes, Ndate Dube. And so I say to him, hi, he says, no, I'm not interviewing you. There's a guy coming after. So I said, oh, okay, sorry. So
Sound like it was staged.
I don't know. So I go into a little room and she introduces me. Tabiso says, Ipileng, lovely to meet you. I had never met her in my life. And she says, you're going to be interviewed by this guy. So I meet this guy. His name is Given. And I introduce myself to him. And he was rather typically Given, very, very arrogant. He said, oh, she's beautiful too. And I thought, I left that. 10 minutes later, we go into the room and we start talking. Great interview. I mean, my whole family called. I think I did tell them within 24 hours that I'm going to be on radio. Like, wow, My whole family called. My dad called. Did my dad call? Yes, he did. He did. My cousins called. Ndate Minga called in.
You related?
No, but I'll tell you how the relation comes. 2 weeks after that, so I leave the interview. It was a fantastic interview, my first and Given then says to me, "Can I have your number?" I said, "No, of course." Give him my number and I leave. And I think he was trying to call me for 2 weeks, but I didn't get the call, So I was just living my life.
What do you mean you didn't get the call?
I didn't get a message. I didn't get a call. 2 weeks later, he says, I've been trying to call you. I said, oh, I have a phone. I gave him my number. He says, no, I've tried to call him. I'm sorry, I haven't. I'd never got a call. I never received the call. So he must have thought I'm ignoring him. So he says something like, we usually like to keep records of people's interviews and, you can come and collect it. I'm like, no, it's fine. I'll fetch it one day. He's like, no, I'd like to give it to you. I'm like, I'll fetch it at Kaya. It's really fine. You don't have to give it to me. He insisted. So I met him. And that's when I really got to know him. And I fell in love with a guy who, his first statement was, I've got 3 children. And I was like, oh my word, what do you mean you've got 3 children? Like, you look so young. He said, no, I'm raising my sisters. And remember, Ipileng would come to Joburg. I was the eldest of 3 girls.
Yeah.
And my mom had died and his mom had passed on. And we connected. We just connected. I just fell in love with a guy who I saw in front of me who was very driven, very, very driven, very clear in his mind about where he was going in his life, and was doing something that I could relate to.
Okay.
Taking care of someone else and others in a very selfless way. And that's how we met. So we met on radio. But the funny part was everybody who called in thought that we were together or kind of said, you're going to be together. So Papa Minga became the guy who called my father when Giv wanted to ask for my hand in marriage. And I never knew him on radio. I never knew who he was. But apparently people kept calling Giv later and saying, who's that lady? Do you know her? She's going to be your wife. And we got married 3, 4, 5 years later. So crazy story.
What a story.
Yeah.
By the way, Dr. Minga is my neighbor.
Really?
Yeah.
You must be joking.
Yes, just across the road.
Then you live in my street. Then I'm your neighbor too.
Yeah.
He lives at the top of my street. That's really strange.
Yeah, I'm right there at the top.
Oh, fabulous. Okay. I'm going to hound Wondate Peter, Wondate Minga. Fabulous.
How do you spend time with your daughters? I mean, do you do it individually or you kind of a girls out thing? I'm sure you do it to decompress and relax.
Totally. I'm the parent who, ever since I met you in Tate Peter, you talk about your kids. It's something that really is amazing, and I'm that mom.
You think it's a good thing?
I'm soaked into my children, maybe too much. So I'm that mom who'll be at the netball game. I was there yesterday watching Zali play.
There you are. I mean, that's work-life balance.
Oh, maybe. I'm just that person who I don't want to lose time with them, and at the same time, I recognize that I love what I do. I love being in my business and running it. But we we take time. We travel together. We traveled a lot as a family together whenever we could. Just little things. I love birthdays. I love going to town for things like birthdays. So those are the things I love doing, you know.
Yeah.
I love dancing. My kids love dancing, which is fantastic. And they're good dancers. So, you know, we love that. We love singing together. It's just little simple things, you know, that, and then sports. They're great at sports and they've always been outdoorsy kids. And that's been very much of a blessing. So yeah, it's just about spending quality time.
Okay, so maybe one or two questions, and I'll allow you to revenge and ask me one or two questions. Any kind of a decision or event that you ever taken that cost you a relationship, looking back?
Wow. Any event, any decision I took.
Yeah, that really cost you a relationship, whether in business or in a personal space.
Oh, definitely in business. Absolutely.
Okay, you want to share?
Yeah, no, happy
One
to
or-
share.
one
Happy
or
to
two.
share.
Okay.
You know, I don't want to sound like I'm a person who has more integrity than someone else. Not at all. But I think that
Holier than thou?
no. But I think that there are some things that I stand by.
Okay. Don't compromise.
And yeah. And I've had to walk away from relationships where I think that we have been compromised deeply and ethically as a team. When we listed a property fund on the JSE, one of my great moments of my career.
Highlights.
Massive highlight in that day. 12 years into a business and you're going onto the JSE. It's no small feat. And I was not the leader of that process. I was part of a team, but it was, you know, I was a key shareholder. There were 2 key shareholders. I think that there are times in life where you realize that partnerships or relationships are for seasons. And I've learned
Come and go.
I've learned that.
Yeah.
They can come and be amazing for a decade. You never look back and think, oh, I've got to watch my back. But there comes a day where you call it a day. And when it happened, I was shocked. I was gutted because it had been my everything. But I think what it taught me was just that lesson. There's always a season, could be personal, could be business. Enjoy that season. Reflect on that season. We thrived in that season. And the season that came after was a season of loss, of despair. But one had to go through that.
Yeah.
And it was a massive moment of learning in my early 40s. So I've been through that. I've got the T-shirt. I've seen that. And, you know, it's just taught me so much.
So it sounds like it's a combination of highlights and lowlights.
Absolutely. And, you know,
Mixed
the low
bag.
lights actually give you the highlights.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just that person. I'm a very positive thinking person. And I thank God for that. I thank God for a thick skin, just as a person growing up. But I think also, you know, what I've learned is that the moment we get it quickly enough that, you know, we put everything into these relationships, family, you put everything into your kids, you know, but that everything has growth in it. And I think if you have that abundance mindset, you're never going to be lost when things fall apart. Hopefully. Let me say, no, you never. You're hopefully not going to be lost. Hopefully you're going to see the moment for what it is. It's a teachable moment.
Yeah.
And I believe in that strongly. So that's just one example. I mean, there are many more where I've had to make key decisions. I just picked probably one that's really been a big part of my life.
So what I'm hearing is you've taken every experience, every moment as educational, building, impacting positively on you. Maybe last question before I allow you to ask me a few questions if you have. Looking back at your great career, any regrets?
No, none.
No regrets? Even not having a boy?
Oh, wow. No regrets. No, I don't live in the regret world. I really don't. I'm very happy and with everything. And there's a lot of challenge out there. that day, I just shared with you that I'm separated. I never thought I would actually be a person who would actually not be with my partner, whom I've been with for 20 years. So I'm learning, even in this, that was a season, and it had its timeline, sadly. So I live looking forward, and I try to find something positive in that. And that's probably one of the questions I wanted to ask you.
Okay.
What has been in your career, life, business, what has been your greatest success and why?
I mean, I think what really defined me has been a couple of things, and I see them as success. The ability to reinvent myself, to remain very grounded and humble, and learning stuff. And you spoke about seasons earlier in life, that certain things, come and go. If you talk about seasons, I mean, you talk about the 4 seasons of the year, the cold, the warm and summer and beautiful, and the windy season and all that. So career gives you that. I mean, I shared with you guys my little experience, and I saw in the room the jaws drop. So, so I think for me, the highlights or the thing that kept driving me has been the fact that I'm never satisfied, and I keep on reinventing myself and learning, but also remaining very very humble about it. And I think that's what keeps me going and going. And also, I think I'm blessed by being the coolest guy in the room in terms of maintaining the right temperament, even when things are quite heated and tough. And sometimes my wife, Matlata's mom, get irritated sometimes when I'm like, the house is about to burn. It's like, just relax. Where is it burning? What is the problem? Like, you should be jumping. And that really helps. I mean, but I think about when I when I joined Medtronic and heard about the story of the lady who stole $500 million and banned it with shopping and a lot of other stuff. People dying in the company and having to connect with the family and being, the spokesperson or the face of the company, which I mean, you'll never be paid enough for those things. And I mean, you're a CEO of a company, chairman, you own it, and sometimes you have to show up for 500 people, 1,000 people all the time. So remaining very calm and cool through thick and thin, I think I don't take it for granted. I think it's
very powerful. Yeah. It's a very powerful character trait, and you're very blessed to have it, Dade Peter. And I think it was quite powerful what you said about reinventing yourself, because indeed, I think in life and in business, you can never be one thing. You constantly are learning and are being challenged. I have a second question for you.
Cool.
I was blown away by your story when you started speaking to us as women. And it kind of connects with, for me, in terms of what you experienced, and I want to assume how you see women empowerment as such an important part of your life. What has been, or who has been in your life that person or persons who've been your role model, who've brought you to this point where your lens in life is seen through kind of this very powerful and very strongly male, but strongly very vulnerable and understanding the journey of women?
I mean, for me, I'll say very few men, but my mom always encouraged me to work hard with very little detail, like, sticking to the process and brutally honest with me. And also my aunt, who actually conned me to be a registered nurse,
As a midwife.
which kind of changed my life in a big way. And my big sister, my first sister, because I come from a big family of 10 kids.
Oh, wow.
So I had to learn the social skills very early and learn how to navigate through the many personalities in the house and everybody else. But my sister, who we just connected so well, always kind of counted on me and supported me and encouraged me in ways that maybe my mom was not able to do. Looking back, I think those relationships created a very solid foundation, for me to do what I've been able to do. But I mean, the formation and foundational years in anybody's life kind of anchor you and shape you to be who you are. Like you said earlier, that I think challenges shape you, make you a stronger person, and I think I've been able to do that. And I remember when I was at college, we've messed up and broke that last door, and they took I think 5 boys in the room to say, you guys have done this. But one of the lecturers said, it can't be Peter. Peter is not like that. So having those people who know you can advocate for you behind closed doors, that I can see all the story, but I don't see him in that. I mean, I still kind of, and it saved me. And I mean, it wasn't me, but somebody was able to see through that crap and say, it cannot be. So if you can leave your character and project it in a way that people box you in the right way that can save you later, I think it's priceless.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
No, thank you. Thank you so much. Those are my 2 questions. Thank you. Says a lot.
Yeah, so thank you very much for really making the time. Please, to the listeners, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. And yeah, I think I've enjoyed it very much.
Thank you so much, Ndate Peter. Thank you for inviting me. It's been wonderful just being part of this conversation.